Welcome to Stormwater Drainage Solutions, and in this video we're going to be showing you how to build a gravity-fed French drain system. So what we have going on here is water is being trapped between these two houses, and it's creating a muddy, soggy mess and not allowing the grass to grow. So basically, if you have groundwater anywhere on your property that is getting trapped like this and it cannot escape, and especially here in Florida, this happens a lot in the new developments. Usually it's due to a clay pan that is underneath the first top layer of topsoil. So if you have this situation going on, the best remedy for it is going to be a French drain. A French drain is going to allow that water, that groundwater, that subsurface water, to have a place to go. That French drain is going to become the new low point in the ground, and the water is going to be able to leach into that French drain system and find its way out. Now we're going to be using the French Drain Man high octane slotted pipe. This is by far the best French drain pipe on the market, and that is the only type of pipe that we use for our French drains. Now, in this situation, got very lucky. We're going to be able to actually gravity feed this French drain into the backyard, because once we get past the hill in the backyard, it drops significantly into a natural area that we can straight pipe our discharge in. So let's go ahead and get started. The first step is going to be digging your trench. Now, in a situation like this, it's very difficult to save any of the sod because of how mushy it is. So the sod just kind of breaks apart. So you're just going to have to dig the trench and throw the dirt to the side and not worry about trying to save the sod in this type of situation. Remember to give 811 a call before you do any excavation. That way they can come out and mark any utility lines that may be in the area. Now, every French drain is going to be unique and designed differently. Now, this particular one is a simple straight shot out to the back. There's not going to be any bends or curves in this trench. Now, as you can see, we already have the trench started, and groundwater is slowly seeping in and filling up the trench. The trench becomes the new low point, and water is going to always seek its own level. So that is why the water slowly seeps into the trench. Once we have our drain stone and our pipe in here, it will slowly start making its way through the pipe, because that becomes the largest void. Now, it is important that anytime you're building a French drain, you want to make sure that your trench has slope. Be very mindful of this. As you can see, I continue to scrape dirt off and allow that water to travel towards me in the direction that I want it to go. If that trench does not have slope, the water will not travel in the direction that you want it to. Now, another thing to keep in mind whenever building a French drainage system, there is no head pressure behind this water. This water is slowly leaching into the French drain and finding the path of least resistance, which would be the French drain pipe, and traveling through that void. That water has to dump down into something. That water will not come up through a pop-up emitter unless the pop-up emitter is lower at the discharge end compared to where the French drain is, meaning that it has to be going downhill. And if it is not going downhill, you're going to have to drop that water into a sump pump basin and then use that pump to lift it and take it to where you want it to go. As you can see here, once we have broken through that hill in the backyard, all the water that has been gathered in our trench begins to now flow out and go downhill in the direction that we want it to go. Now let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about using a filter fabric on your French drainage system. Now, this is a huge debate among people, but I'm here to tell you that a good non-woven geotextile filter fabric is an essential part of any French drainage system. It doesn't matter if you're building it in the clay, the soil, it doesn't matter the soil type. You need a good geotextile fabric when you're building a French drainage system. This acts as a soil separator so that the native soil does not slowly migrate into the stone over time, clogging the voids and making your French drain completely useless. Now, there are loads of these fabrics on the market, so if you buy the wrong fabric, of course you're going to have problems. The French drain is not going to drain as efficiently as it could, opposed to if you bought the correct type of filter fabric. Now, what I'm holding in my hand is a 3-ounce non-woven geotextile fabric. This is the type of fabric that you want to use. You want to use a low ounce filter fabric. Now, if you can get it punched or double punched, that's even better. But basically what I'm trying to explain to everybody is And there's other guys out there, there's other professionals out there that are saying the same thing. They're trying to get people to understand. If the municipalities around the US and the world as well, if they're all using filter fabrics on their projects, on their construction sites, on new home developments, on roadways, then obviously there's a reason those engineers are using this filter fabric. They're not just using it for no reason, because at the end of the day, these companies, these big developer companies, they want to make money. So if they can not buy something to make more money, then obviously they're going to do that so they can save on money. So there's a reason they're using these geotextile filter fabrics, and it's because they work. So that is why we use them on our French drain systems. Once you have your trench dug and leveled properly, you want to go ahead and install the correct type of geotextile filter fabric and line the trench with that. After that, it's time to install your French drain pipe. Put that pipe all the way at the bottom of the trench. And you can do this because you have a filter fabric at the bottom. You do not need to put stone underneath the pipe. You want the pipe at the bottom of the trench. That way it can evacuate out the most water. If you put stone underneath that pipe, you're always going to have a decent amount of water sitting underneath that pipe. And the whole point is you're trying to evacuate out as much water as possible. So put the pipe at the bottom of the trench. To make our transition over from our perforated French drain pipe to our solid SDR35 PVC pipe, we're going to be using a no-hub fitting, also known as a rubber boot. These hold up very well underground, and they do not create any obstructions inside the pipe. Now, we also decided to use a clean out in between the two types of pipe. The reason for this is because since we're discharging it into a natural area, in case any animals decide to make their home inside the pipe, we can always use this clean out as a way to flush them out. A quick tip: when solvent welding PVC pipe together, it's a lot easier to do sections of it outside of the trench, especially when you have a straight run, and then place the pipe down in the trench and level it out. Now, the reason we're transitioning over from our French drain pipe to a solid PVC pipe is because we have collected the water in the problem area, and now we want to contain that water in a solid pipe to be able to discharge it. At the end of the discharge, we're going to give it a 90-degree cut to give it a more finished look. This rut that is being carved out will be lined with filter fabric and filled in with stone later. When choosing an aggregate to fill your French drain with, you want to make sure that you stay away from pea stone. The problem with pea stone is it compacts too tightly and the voids are too small, so you will not move water as efficiently. Now, you can use pea stone to leach water, but not to collect it. So we have found that the best type of rock to use for a French drain system is going to be 3/4 to 1 to 1.5 inch stone. That way your voids stay large because the rock does not compact as much, and that way the water can move freely into your pipe. Now, when we take a look down in this clean out, you can already see water traveling through this French drain. And we're going to go ahead and make our way to the back here. That way you can see the entire run and the entire pipe system, and you'll be able to see all the water that is dumping out of this French drain into the natural area. That's what French drains do. They collect subsurface water and they work 24/7, 365 days of the year. They are non-stop. They are constantly working. They're working when you're sleeping. Now, as you can see, that water is making its way into our rut here. Now, the reason we made this rut, we're going to line it with geotextile filter fabric and we're going to put drain stone in here. That way, it acts as a barrier and helps with erosion control because this thing is going to be working all the time. We are now adding our stone into the discharge end. That way it can help with any erosion control. And as you can see, the water has actually slowed up significantly compared to when we first installed it. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to put the hose in the beginning of the French drain run. Now, we're doing this because we want to flush out any debris, sediment, or dirt that may have gotten into the pipes while we were installing them. You can see how fast the water is flowing now. That is because we have the hose at the very beginning of the French drain run. Now I'm going to go ahead and walk this distance back to the beginning of the run so you can see the hose in action flushing the system out before we bury it up. Another thing that I wanted to touch on about French drains is sometimes you may think you need them, but in actuality, you may only need to reroute your gutter downspouts into gutter downspout drains and divert the water away from your house. The only reason you would need a French drain is if there's water being trapped in a certain area and it cannot percolate into the ground because of a clay pan or because of either groundwater pressure that is pushing the water out in that specific area. So you don't always need a French drain. Remember, a French drain that is designed properly with the correct geofabric and stone and pipe material is going to cost you more than just simply rerouting your gutter downspouts into a drainage system. Every French drain that we install, we stitch it up by hand. Now, I want to give a shout out to Sam's French Drains and Landscaping. They're located in Orlando, Florida. This man does amazing work. He is one of the best, probably in the country. So if you live in Orlando, Florida, and you're looking for a drainage system installed, I highly recommend that you contact Sam's French Drains and Landscapings. So shout out to him, because he's the one that taught me how to stitch these systems up. When closing your system up, you want to also make sure that you cut off any excess fabric. You do not want to overlap the fabric. If you overlap the fabric, that is going to create a slower flow rate from surface water that is percolating down and trying to make its way into your French drain. So that is very important. Make sure you cut off extra fabric before you stitch it up. Now that we have our entire system stitched up, it's time to bury it up. Now remember, none of this dirt is going back in that system. We're going to use the sandiest of soil to put on the top of the French drain, and then the clay soil, we are going to go ahead and grade that out on the sides of the French drain, and we're going to slope it towards the French drain. Now, this is so that water sheds off of that clay and it goes onto the French drain and the sandiest of soil that's on top of the French drain fabric, so that the water can perk through that sand better and make it to our French drain. Now remember, stirring up this clay and putting organic material in here is going to help it leach and it's going to help it drain better. We are also going to put grass seed. We're going to put a lot of grass seed throughout this entire area, and we're going to put straw down. We're going to put a lot of straw in this area as well. This is going to turn into organic material. It's going to help mix with the clay. That way everything will drain a little bit more efficiently. As you can see here, we're spreading the straw throughout the area. Now another option is you could sod this entire area. That would obviously work just as well. But to stay within the client's budget, we opted for straw. Now, whenever you sod this area, you do not need to put any dirt back on top of the French drain. You can lay your sod directly on top of that French drain. There's nothing wrong with doing this. Those grass roots are going to grow down into the fabric, but they are not going to go past the rock layer. The reason for this is because, one, grass roots do not get very long, and two, we have so much void in those stones and in that pipe that those grass roots are going to get air pruned off in the dry season. When this whole area dries out, those roots will not be able to survive down in there because there is no soil for them to live in. That is why you want a good filter fabric, a soil separator on your French drain to keep the soil out of the stone, and this will in turn help keep roots out of your system. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and you gained some knowledge from watching it. And if you did, give us a thumbs up. It really supports us. It supports the channel. And we have a ton of other videos, so go visit our channel. And if you want to learn more about stormwater drainage, this is the place to be. This is SWDS signing off.